Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Video Game Collectors on Call. So today on call with me is Matt from Matt's Game Room Collection. Matt, welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. So, we'll just go ahead and get started and dive right in. When did you start loving video games? Do you remember the first moment you really had that connection?
Yes, so I thought about this coming into the show. So
Perfect.
I remember being a kid, probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I was born in 1987. But I remember going into like Sears at the mall, and they had like the Nintendo kiosks, like the kind that you'll find in Best Buy or Target today, and they had one of those. Um, the Super Nintendo was not out yet, but I remember like playing Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and I was again like three. I'd never seen a video game before, and I played it, and I think they had Super Mario. Might have been 1991. They had Super Mario World on display, and I got an NES for Christmas later that year because my parents knew I loved it. Got
Yeah.
the Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt two pack. Um, was awful. My parents were so much better than me, and then like within a month, I was lapping my parents, getting higher scores, and ended up getting the Super Nintendo actually the following Christmas. And so that was kind
So,
of a magical memory.
so yeah, you mentioned Sears. I don't think Sears is kind of out of business, right?
Yeah,
They don't
no,
do
there's
those
not many
anymore.
Sears anymore.
Yeah. So, and then you also mentioned Duck Hunt. The Mario Duck Hunt game. Did
Hmm.
you know? And maybe I'm just the only one. Did you know you can control the ducks with
Yeah, with
the
player
controller?
two. I
Yeah, you
learned
knew
that just
that.
recently. I did not know
Okay,
that as
okay,
a kid.
okay.
Yeah,
All right, yeah. I don't think anyone knows that, because who reads the manuals? But apparently, it's directly in the manual. It states it. So.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah. What about collecting? So when did all that turn into? I'm going to start collecting games.
I feel like that was another gradual progression. Like as a kid, I think I only had six NES games after that story I just told, and then maybe
Uh,
like 10 Super Nintendo. Nintendo 64 came out, and that was kind of when I went all in as a gamer. Like I think I had like 50 games, and I was only a 10-year-old when Nintendo 64 came out. Was always reading my Nintendo Power magazine. Had like the player's guides, the strategy guides. I was always looking forward to. Like I bought Banjo Kazooie on launch day, Ocarina of Time on launch day, Majora's Mask on launch day. Like I was full on gamer at that point, and that's when I became a collector. And
do
then
you
in
still
recent
have?
years, I go back.
Do you still have those games? The original, like Banjo Kazooie, you bought 20 some years ago. You still have the same copy
I do, yes, yeah.
with the
I think
box with
I've.
the box and everything. Did you
I
save
do
the
not.
boxes?
That's my biggest
Okay,
regret. I wish I had held on
okay.
to those.
I mean, when you think about it, it's like cardboard. Who would think to save that? But I guess now it's
Yeah,
for collectors very valuable to have the box and everything.
yeah. I see those at my retro game store near me, like the box
Uh-huh.
copies, and I'm like,
Yeah,
they're tempting to buy, like just for display, but I
yeah.
can't. The prices they
Well,
are.
so you mentioned a lot of Nintendo, but you collect other things too, right? You have some PlayStation and other systems, right?
Yeah, so I actually missed. I skipped the PlayStation 1 generation. My first PlayStation was PlayStation 2. But yeah, I have probably like probably about 40 games for PS2, 40 for original Xbox, and then that was it. The floodgates were open. I was a collector of everything.
Is there anything you don't collect? Like maybe some like do you do handheld stuff as well?
Yeah. So most of my games are mine. Like I bought them. Probably 95% of my collection is stuff that I bought new, like the month that they came out.
Gotcha.
Handheld stuff, I have a bunch of Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, mostly Nintendo. If you can't pick up
Yeah.
on that, but yeah, I don't go back so much to the handheld. I find it's a little hard to sometimes go back, especially with those like older games. I did buy one of
Yeah.
those. What do you call it? The Analog
The
Pocket.
rich. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's been pretty cool. I have gone back recently and played some old games, so maybe I do need to flesh out my Game Boy collection a little bit.
Very cool. Do you well, let's talk about your game room actually. I want to talk about that because you have a pretty cool looking setup and everything. How long did it take to get the setup where it is now, or is it an ever evolving process?
Yeah, yeah, it's always evolving.
Yeah.
This is my basement. I built my
Uh,
basement in 2021. Just
when
had
you
the
say
TV.
you built the basement, like you finished your basement as well, or you hired someone to do that and then
Oh, no.
you decorated it?
Yeah, I'm not handy. Yeah,
Okay,
we got
okay,
a contractor to do it.
okay.
But yeah, I got the basic furniture in, and then slowly started adding the cabinets where you can see I have like all my games there.
Uh-huh.
Um, and
Are
it's just
those
been
built?
an
Are
ever
those built
evolving
into the
process.
wall? The cabinets?
No, those are I get 90% of my stuff from IKEA. Those are
Okay,
IKEA Billies.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then when it comes to displaying your collection, so I've seen something a little different for cartridge games that you do when I've seen some pictures of your collection that other people don't do. You have kind of the displays where they're front to back, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that was a recent. I did that probably about a year ago. Um, I had them all like bookend, which is great for like the NES games, the Super NES. The one thing I don't like is Nintendo 64 doesn't have the title on the spine.
Right. Yeah.
So I've seen other people on Instagram display their games in more of that like tiered stadium style, and
Yeah.
I was like, that's really cool. I need to do that. I found a seller on Etsy who was doing it, and it was not cheap
Okay.
because each one of those things is maybe like $10 and holds 5 games, 6 games, and I had to
Yeah.
do it for I don't know
I was
150
gonna
games or something like that.
say it probably takes up more space too, right? So now you got more
Yeah.
shelves that you need. But you were talking about Nintendo 64 games. So I put mine in little plastic cases like this, and then on the top I got these stickers off of eBay, and you can
Well,
just
yeah.
put this that way I can see on the spine what game I'm pulling and
Yeah.
what it is. Have you played all the games that you have?
I'd say like 90%. Um,
Okay.
there's some games you just get into the hype and
Hmm.
you're like, I plan to play this one day, and then life happens and you never get around to it.
Okay.
I remember Final Fantasy 12 on PS2. I went to the midnight opening at GameStop. I was so excited. I bought Final Fantasy 12, and I still to this day have not played it. I was just like,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, it was more
Is it
about
still
the
sealed?
moment.
Is it sealed still?
It is not. I got
Oh.
the collector's edition that was in the steelbook case,
Okay.
and I don't know if it was ever sealed. It might have come that way in like some kind of shrink wrap
Do
packaging, but
Do you have any sealed games, or you're not a sealed collector?
I do have some sealed. But if it's sealed, it's again like something I bought and intended to play, but then never got
Okay.
around to it.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, where do you buy your games at? Are you typically online, like eBay or something, or do you have a retro store you like to frequent?
Yes. So I'm in the Philadelphia area, and there's a store I like to go to called Retro Game Junkie. They have a few
Okay.
locations around the Philadelphia area. They have
Okay.
great stuff, like a lot of collectors' items. I was there today, actually. They have a Virtual
Oh wow.
Boy for sale. A lot of like
Okay.
rare stuff. I've seen they have like the old. Have you seen the Game Boy Advance models that are like the Charizard, the Venusaur, the Rayquaza Pokemon, like the imprints on them? They're a good place for like really rare stuff.
Huh. Okay.
Prices are not cheap. That Virtual Boy was $600, but it came with like the whole box. It was updated soldering, so it's a
Hmm.
collector's dream, but
Hmm.
it's pricey. Um, as far as like new stuff, I do still buy PS5, Xbox, Switch, all that stuff. Um, I tend to use Best Buy more or
Okay.
less. My last
Okay.
few experiences, I've pre-ordered things and then they just didn't have it on release day, like an item I pre-ordered. So
Okay.
now I don't know.
Wow.
Physical games are getting harder these days.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask next. Is it sounds like you're more a physical game kind of guy. Growing up the same time I did. Now everything's digital, but I prefer to have a physical copy of a game as opposed to a digital copy.
Yeah, I started to go digital. I realized probably around the COVID times, like stores were closed. I wasn't. It's not as easy to get to Target to pick something up or Best Buy to pick something up, um, and did a lot of digital. PS5 launched. I was all digital, and then the news of Wii U and 3DS eShop closing came, and I was like, this is going to happen every few years. The last console generation is going to like lose internet access. I kind of want to just have something for
Yeah.
posterity like to hold on to.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think physical copies stay with you forever, and then a digital copy, who knows when that may go away, or you might not be able to access it. So,
Yeah.
um, what about prices? So you mentioned the Virtual Boy was like $600. So where do you personally, if you're looking to see if you're getting a good price, do you have any way to determine that?
Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of time I'll just look at like eBay listings, that sort of thing. I
Okay.
do try to limit myself.
Yeah.
Like collector's items are cool. I have a lot of cool stuff on display, which is awesome. I don't know that I'd drop $600 on something that I probably don't intend to use. Like a Virtual Boy, I'd
Right.
play once or twice for the novelty of it, and then it would just be a cool display item. But I don't know if I could justify a display item for that kind of
Yeah.
price.
Yeah,
Um,
and
so there's
a lot
yeah,
of
balance.
a lot of collections I see. I think people have to keep in mind that this wasn't overnight. So like all the games we see behind you, it's not like the past 3 months you accumulated all these games, right? We're probably talking, several years. Is
Oh
that
yeah,
correct?
yeah. Again, most of these games were like I bought brand new from GameStop when they first
Right.
came out. So yeah, this is
Right.
a 30 plus year
And
process.
that's even like the Nintendo games or the Super Nintendo games or the 64 games, correct?
Yeah,
Most of them.
yeah. I think
Okay.
I've traded
Do
in 2 games my entire life.
Well, that was my next question: is do you sell any of your games, or do you tend to trade them in?
Yeah, no, for the most part, no.
Okay, gotcha.
Duplicates sometimes I do.
Do you know how many games you have in your collection total?
I should catalog it. I have like Xbox 360 is far and away my biggest collection. I have probably about 300 physical games.
Wow.
That was
Okay.
my gaming peak. I was in college, I had money, but um,
Okay.
yeah, I'd say probably 1,000, maybe a little more than 1,000.
Were you a big fan of Xbox Live as well? Did you play a lot of online games then?
Yes, back then
What
I
were
did.
what were some of the things you played when you were in college? Do you remember?
Halo is big.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Obviously, all of those. Gears of War was big. I remember, like, yeah, 2007 was that big year that had Halo 3 and the Orange Box. Not that that's online. Oh, it had Team
It
Fortress
is.
2.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, BioShock came out that year. Call of Duty Modern Warfare
Yeah.
4, Call of Duty 4 came out that year. Rock Band came out that year. I think Mass Effect was that year. So that was like the big push. That was like Xbox was all in at that point.
Yeah, I think Xbox Live is the first time I really got into playing online. And we played a lot of Ghost. I don't know if you played Ghost Recon. There
Yeah,
was a
those were
Rainbow
great.
Six. Yeah, Rainbow Six game we
Hmm.
had. We even had a clan. They called them clan matches that you would
Yeah.
do. And it's not like that anymore. I feel like, but it was definitely fun time staying up till 2 in the morning and having a class the next morning at seven
Yeah.
thirty. It's
Yeah.
nothing like that.
Um,
Um,
sorry,
yeah,
quick segment here. You mentioned Rainbow Six. Rainbow
yeah,
Six Vegas, I remember, had a
yeah.
feature on Xbox 360 where if you had the Xbox 360 camera, and this was before the Kinect, this was like the
Uh huh.
USB camera that they
Yeah,
had,
yeah. Is it
you could
the
scan your
yeah?
face, and it was like a precursor to having avatars.
Yeah. Well, I also remember, I think it might have been Rainbow Six Vegas. So there were a lot of people who, what they would do, there was a level where it was like in an airport and there was a ladder you could climb up. But if you disconnected your Ethernet cable from your router and then kept climbing the ladder and then waited like 30 seconds and plugged it back in, you would end up on top of the building. It was like a hack that people would do. And I remember that to this day that people would cheat and go up on top of the building. And I hated that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure still people still cheat in things like Fortnite. I'm sure, but I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I don't play games like that these anymore. I
Yeah.
just don't have the
No, me
time
neither.
or the friends to play online. Um, Tell me about your most prized gaming possession. Like, do you have a game that stands out to you as very important for some reason?
Yeah, so I have a few, maybe not
Okay.
necessarily one.
Uh huh.
Ocarina of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time. I think I told you I
Okay.
pre-ordered that. I had it on launch day. I have the gold cartridge, which is awesome. That's just special to me. I don't know that I play it so much these days since Ocarina of Time's available on half dozen other systems, and sometimes
Right.
it's hard to go back to the actual original 64. But um, that's pretty prized to me. As far as like a rare collector's item, I have a copy of Earthbound. I have on Super Nintendo. I have Super Mario RPG, the original. Um, yeah, a handful of like few gems that ended up rare.
Do you have any I guess gaming memories that stick out in mind as like something you'll always remember? Like maybe a game you played that took you forever to beat and you finally beat it.
Yeah. Um, let's see. So
These are
these
tough
days,
questions, huh?
they
You didn't
they
think
are.
you weren't
They,
expecting them.
yeah. I'll say these days I'm more of a like achievement and trophy hunter. So like when I go into a game, I go in expecting to 100% it. There's some that I have that took a long time. Um, did you ever play Rayman Legends from about 12 years ago?
I played a demo of it, and it's the level where Black Betty is playing,
Yeah,
right? And you're like
right.
running, and yeah, that's the only level I've played. Yeah,
Yeah, there are a lot of great music levels in that game. That was a very
yeah,
good 2D platformer.
yeah.
But they had a trophy where like you had to accumulate enough XP, and in order to get that trophy, it was the last one I needed for like the platinum trophy. I played Rayman Legends like daily challenges every day for probably about 6 or 7 months.
Okay,
Um, and
wow,
that was pretty intense just for some little digital trophy. As far as like actual campaigns go, you never get sick of Skyrim. That's something you could always go back to. Um, First time I beat Zelda again, Ocarina of Time, that was hit me into all the feels. Long. That was not long by today's standards, but long as far as a game from 1998 goes.
sure.
Um,
Are
yeah.
you still looking for anything for your collection? Is there like a game that's on your radar that if you could find it for a good deal, you'd want to get it?
Nothing really stands out right now. I am I do try to fill in holes. A lot of the time, over the years, I've lost a lot of copies of my games. Not really, again, traded in, just lost through time. Super Mario Kart I had as a kid and played the heck out of it and really loved it. And somewhere along the way, I lost it. Same thing with a lot of my DS Pokemon games I lost, but those are pricey and hard to replace these days.
Mario Kart is one of those games that's been on every Nintendo system. Have you seen the Mario Kart where you actually have a cart that drives around on your floor and you
Yeah,
make a little track for it? Have you played
yeah.
that?
I have. My kids have it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's very cool. It's actually a lot of fun if you have a cat as well
Yeah,
because
they'll
the
chase
cat
it.
tends to so. What about your thoughts on people who grade games? This is a little bit of a controversial topic, so I'm just curious on your take.
Yeah. So I feel like I've matured as far as it goes. I mentioned earlier, like a lot of these I have for just for collection's sake, right? At this point, a lot of the games I have behind me are trophies to me. They're for memories more than they are for actually going back and playing. Um, and so, from that perspective, to have kind of like a collection, something that's prized that you have on display, I understand graded. Um, and if it's something like in my case, you're probably not going to go back and play, but something that's just valuable to you, a good memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I personally don't have any, but I'm not against it.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's cool. Um, what about? And this doesn't have to be a video game per se, but what's the coolest thing that is in your game room basement area?
Yeah. So once I got the basement in 2021, I kind of went full steam ahead on collectibles. Um, I have very limited time. I have two kids these days. I have two kids, a wife, full-time job, that sort of thing. And I kind of realized, there's a lot of value in surrounding yourself with the things that you love, even if you don't have time for it. Like at least you can be around it for memories. I
Yeah.
bought my first foray into like high-end collectibles. I bought a life-size Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask statue. It's like two
Oh.
feet tall.
Oh.
It's awesome. It's like a resin
Okay.
full thing, um,
Yeah.
and that's important to me. That's my first big high end collectible.
Was
Um,
that made by Nintendo or?
it's licensed by Nintendo, made by First Four Figures. If you heard of
Okay.
them, they've got a line
No.
of statues, but yeah, really cool. They have some great ones.
And not to stray off the topic of video games much, because this is a podcast dedicated to that. But I also have understood by looking at your page that you're a big Marvel fan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we can make it video game related. What's your favorite Marvel video game? Or do you have one?
Um,
There are a
yeah.
lot of
Let's.
bad ones, honestly.
There are.
I mean, yeah.
As far as memories go, I loved Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the first one. Uh, like the dungeon crawling, plenty of heroes. Honestly, the whole series, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, X-Men Legends and 1 and 2, those came before that. And then Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is always a blast.
So, have you played the new Marvel Rivals game that just came out recently?
Yeah, I played it for about an hour. It was pretty good. I don't play much multiplayer these days, but from what I
Okay.
did play, it was fun.
Okay. It's, in my opinion, it's fun. It's just very difficult. You have to really choose a character and just play that character and get good with them because I played it a handful of times. I think I switched around to different characters and I never felt like I really was good or grasped the skills needed for the game. So
Yeah,
definitely a tough one.
yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot, obviously, of Overwatch.
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
there's easy to pick up and play characters. There's difficult players,
Hmm.
support characters, that whole thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite Marvel character?
I've always loved Spider-Man.
Okay.
And in more recent years, I love Captain America and Thor as well. Like since in the rise of like the Avengers movies, I really grew to like them.
So have you played the PlayStation Spider-Man games?
Yeah, loved those.
Okay.
All
Okay.
three of them. One,
I
two, and
just beat
Miles Morales.
Yeah, I just beat number 2 recently and I loved it. I thought it was great. The
Yeah,
final boss, man, I mean, just the last few bosses seemed like they took forever. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it was like four
yeah,
stages for the same boss, and it just kept. You thought it was over, and it wasn't.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, not
um,
to spoil anything, but
yeah. It's good though. It hits you in the feels.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So, what about we talked about your favorite game, right? Which was Zelda, correct? Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite multiplayer game of all time?
I'd probably go Halo 2.
Halo 2.
So yeah, Halo 2 I have great memories with. I also I love Super Smash Brothers, any of them, whatever's the newest one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you ever seen? I think it's The Onion has that article that says player is too good in Smash Brothers for his friend group, but not good enough to go pro.
No,
That's me.
that's you.
I
Okay,
would never want to play at the professional level because I'll get beaten, but
but you
I love
annihilate all
playing
your
with my
friends.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your character?
Link. So I started
Link. Oh,
with
that makes sense.
Link,
Yeah.
yeah, on 64 and held on to him. I've gotten good with
He's
Pokemon Trainer, Ike. I like Pyra now in the new one,
okay.
and Piranha Plant too. Yeah,
Wow, you got some diversity there. I mean,
yeah,
I usually just stick with one character and that's it. And people are like, pick somebody else. I'm like, no, I don't want to. If it's not broke, you don't need to fix it, right?
yeah.
So, what about your favorite console of all time?
uh, okay. I don't know. I can give you a top three. I don't know if I
Okay,
can narrow it
top
down.
three in no particular order,
Yes. Okay.
and
So
why?
okay, Super Nintendo is kind of when I kind of came into my own as a video gamer. Um, I mentioned Ocarina of Time is my favorite game, but Super Mario World has a lot of importance to me as well. Loved the platforming. That console just, it was amazing to see. Loved the pixel art, all that stuff. Had great RPGs. I mentioned Super Mario RPG I owned and played through. Donkey Kong Countries, all those were great. And so that one's very important to me. Nintendo 64 is the natural evolution of that. I got one of those at launch. I had Super Mario 64. I had Ocarina of Time. I mentioned Banjo-Kazooie. A lot of great games that I gravitated towards. And multiplayer was great too. Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers, Wave Race, Mario Tennis. Ton of great multiplayer games on that console.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then the third one, I would say probably Xbox 360. That was like, I was full on gamer. I worked at a GameStop in my college years. I remember I was actually the first person to buy an Xbox 360 at my store where I worked. So yeah, had that, and Halo was great, Gears of War, all that stuff.
I think Xbox 360 was the first console I ever pre-ordered, and I can remember, on a school night going and waiting at midnight to get the console, and they had
Mm-hmm.
like a bundle. There was a store called EB Games. I don't know if
Oh
you've
yeah.
ever heard of that. Yeah, and so they had a bundle where you got to choose. There was like 7 launch titles, and you chose 3 of them. Plus, you chose like an extra controller or a memory card or something, and it was like a whole
Mm-hmm.
bundle. And I can remember like my friend and I both got it the same time. So that was the first one I pre-ordered. What what's the worst game you've ever played?
Ooh.
I know
So
this is
I mentioned I've traded in 2 games ever. One of
okay.
those, it's not necessarily a bad game because I don't know about it. So the story behind this is on Xbox 360, I bought Dynasty Warriors 5 Legends. It was like a spin-off Dynasty Warriors game, not a mainline one. Came out on Xbox 360. Xbox 360 was only a few months old at that point, and I was like, I like who doesn't love Dynasty Warriors? You can just fight a whole army of people, and I could not figure out the menu. I couldn't. I
Wow.
couldn't actually get into a battle, and so I tried it on 2 or 3 separate occasions. I was like, maybe it's just me. I can't. How do I get into a menu? Do I need to equip something? Do I need to pick a character? I could. I traded it in. I couldn't figure out how to play this game.
Okay.
Um,
That's fair. That's fair.
yeah. Um, as far as like actually games that were rough, unplayable. So have you seen? Obviously, we just got the announcement of Tony Hawk 3 and 4 remake coming on modern platforms. They came out with a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 about 10 years ago, and this was after the hype had died down. Like the franchise had been dead for 6, 7 years. There hadn't been a new Tony Hawk since then. Tony Hawk 5 was bad. It was.
Is the music at least still good?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. And that's
but
for which console?
it was on PS4 and Xbox One. And I remember like playing this and thinking like, wow, this wouldn't have been a good sequel even if it came out in 2004. Like at the
Yeah.
series peak, this was just a straight
Yeah.
up bad game by any standards. It was stiff. It was, yeah, not good.
Okay. Good to know. What about is there anything you're playing through right now? Any game you're working on? Getting
Uh,
100% on?
yes. So I have 4 trophies left in Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which was pretty good. Um, and I just picked up Monster Hunter Wilds as well last week.
Okay.
I'm not very far into that, but I'm having a good time with that so far.
Okay. I highly recommend. I just finished Split Fiction, The only issue
Yeah.
is you have to have someone to play it with, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that sometimes that can be difficult at our age, and when some of our friends don't have the availability. But
Yeah. I plan to get Split Fiction. I just started It Takes Two with a friend, so once we finish that,
oh,
we'll go on to Split Fiction.
where are you at? And it takes two.
So I've beaten it before. I played it on
Oh,
Xbox. It
okay,
was on Game Pass, and now we just started it again on PS5.
okay, yeah,
So I don't remember. We got out of the barn, I think.
okay.
And
Very very fun co-op games. I
yeah,
think games like that don't really come along very often. And there's what's the A Way Out? I don't know if you played that
yeah,
one.
the
That's the
Prison Break
prison
one.
one.
That was great.
Yeah, that's a
Great
good
twist at the
one.
end too.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to think. There's one more that I know that I've played, but I can't remember the name of it. Do you know of any other co-op games like that?
So I think that same studio did Brothers, right? A Tale of Two Sons. Was that them?
Maybe I've not played that
But
though. I'm
you
not.
can play that in single player though. That was not
Okay,
enforced multiplayer.
gotcha. Okay, all right. Do you have any sort of advice for people who would like to maybe start collecting or just started, or maybe people who want to build a game room in their basement? What's some tips and tricks for that?
Yeah, I'd say like it takes time. Again, I accumulated this because I never traded in my games. I held on to them, um, and it's not something that happens overnight. You save money, you put it aside. Most of the time when I make a game decision, it's not a spur of the moment thing. I've decided. I know I want Assassin's Creed Shadows next week, so I put money aside for that. I know I want Doom. What's the new Doom coming out in May?
Ooh, I don't
Doom: The
know.
Dark
Doom.
Ages.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But I process in advance. I know here's what I budgeted. Here's the games I want. Um,
Yeah.
and then like just buy the games you like. Again, I mentioned like there are certain corner case scenarios where I will buy something like that I don't intend to play just to have something cool on my shelf. But for the most
Mhm.
part, if you like a game, buy it. Support the developers. I see you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge behind you,
I do.
which
I
that
do.
is an awesome
Yes.
collector's edition.
Yes. Yes.
That's one like that launched on Game Pass a few years
Uh-huh.
ago when it came out, and I
Right.
loved it. Played it all the way through, got every achievement on it, and then it came out on physical, and I was like, I've already beaten this 100%, but I want to support that developer. I did buy one for the
Yeah.
collection, so
I have not gotten 100% on it. I'll tell you that. I have beaten it. But when it comes to games, man, getting 100%, kudos to you because that's tough in any game. I don't think there's any game that I've ever gotten 100% of the achievements in. So,
yeah, I could probably
do
play
you?
3 times as many games if I didn't take as
Eh,
long with my games.
sure. What was the first game you ever got 100% in? Do you know?
Yeah, so I go back to like Mario 64. Again, there's not like achievements or trophies, but I got every
Sure.
star in that.
Okay.
Um, Super Mario World, you can get
$100%.
the right, yeah. All the enemies change. The Goombas changed to
Right.
Galoombas or whatever they are. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Um, Pokemon, I caught
Very.
151,
Okay.
150
Very
plus
cool.
the one you get for free. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Very cool. Okay. And then as far as social media where people can see kind of your collection or your game room and things like that, Instagram and then any other places you post content?
Yes, I'm on YouTube as well. Um,
Okay.
so YouTube is the same content as Instagram. It's my shorts. I usually do weekly, like silly videos, skits about, dad jokes about gamer life. I like to say.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do have one video tour. It's about half an hour if you want to see like the walkthrough of the room, all of my
Uh-huh.
cool collectibles. It's not just video games. I have a lot of like the Marvel and Star Wars stuff on display too.
That's on YouTube, the tour of the game room?
Yes, same
Okay.
channel name, Matt's Game Room Collection.
Perfect. Okay. Well, it's been a great discussion. I'm glad we got to talk. Glad we got to see some of your game room behind you there.
Yeah, my pleasure.
If I will point out if this splices together weirdly. We did have a technical difficulty in the middle of the show, so I apologize for that, and I am aware of it. And I'm not a professional video editor, so again, I apologize for that. But hopefully, you enjoyed watching. Matt, thanks for coming on again. And everybody, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow Matt's Game Room. Check out his cool videos on YouTube, and tune in next week for the next episode of Video Game Collectors on Call. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.